Toronto Sports Rush with Dan and Kyle and Neil Smith. Neil is just auditioning for his next stand-up gig. Before we went on air here, some great dad jokes. Neil Smith, Stanley Cup winner, just got back from a long journey, and you've already done all your errands for the day. So I'm sure you wanted to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs next up on your list.
Oh, and I've already talked about them once today on my own podcast, NHL Wraparound. So let's talk about them again. We talked about them in our series of train wrecks. So I'm sure you guys are feeling the same way.
Yeah, so back-to-back losses over the weekend. Is the sky is falling? Is this all because there's no Mitch Marner?
I don't think that has everything to do with it, but because I think that defensively they're not playing well. I mean, Carolina made them look silly the other night. They even when they had the lead, they were being badly outplayed, in my opinion, on watching it on TV. And I guess the part that bothered me the most as an ex-GM, that would bother me the most if I'm Brad Treliving, is you drop a game to Boston 5-3 at home. You rarely play back-to-back home games ever, but in this situation they are. So you got to be motivated and fired up to win the next night, the Hall of Fame game against Carolina, and you come out and you let Carolina dominate you. That would drive me nuts.
Neil, yeah, looking just quickly at the score sheet here. At one point, they had a 4-2 lead, but at no point were they the better team in the ice visibly, and they were outshot in this game 47-20, including only 2 shots in the third period that they blew the lead in. Berube must be livid at this point, yes?
He's got to be going crazy, and it looked like it on the bench on TV that he was in a couple of tirades there, and I would be too if I were him. I mean, because they just are not disciplined. Having said that, the guy that, and I think I said this last time I was on with you guys, the guy that played great again was John Tavares. I mean, he was the reason that they were almost extinguishing a bad game because of his play. And of course, Nylander got the 2 goals. I realize that, but Tavares it marvels me at the way he plays. If everybody on that Leaf team played as hard as he does, I don't think they'd be having any problems. But Stolarz is not performing the way I think a lot of people hoped he would. I think he's never been a number 1 goalie, and now they're going to try to play him a lot of games, and he hasn't played that many games. I don't know if that's already taking effect. I know we had that little bit of controversy earlier in the season where he called out some of his teammates, and that didn't go over real well. But there's something there, and he got lifted in that game against Boston, and then Hilteby had to play against Carolina. So I think they got a lot of work to do on the back end to try to be better defensively. And that really has nothing to do with Mitch Marner having gone. Mm-hmm. And I know you said that sort of tongue in cheek, but I do think that if Marner was there, they'd probably be going through the same thing, because it's not really, a problem that he would be able to solve.
You mentioned Stolarz. Berube called him out. He says, we got to be better, including the goalie. Now, Neil, you get to be an outside observer. I said this start of the year. I said it started last year. I said at the start of the season before. Something happens with goalies in Toronto where Leaf fans, Leafs management, everyone covering the team falls into a spell and say, this is our guy. This time it was Anthony Stolarz. Oh, man, he's going to be a Vezina winner. He is going to take us to the promised land. And I watch it from afar and say, what are you seeing that I'm not? And again, it's crumbling down again. What is it where people get so enamored and say, this is the guy, and each year it's not the guy?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been the guy for a long time, ever since, let's say, they had Eddie Belfour, Curtis Joseph. Those guys really did carry the teams back then, but they haven't been able to find that goalie, or be able to draft that goalie, or trade for that goalie. I do think that Stolarz has been a good pickup for them, and he did perform well for them, and he's a big guy, and that seems to be today's demographic for a good goalie, is to get a great big huge guy and have him in the net to cover most of the net. But again, he's never been a number one. And so it's hard to make that transition to being number one because of the fact that you're not in that day after day grind when you're the backup. And, there's an adjustment there. So I'm sure he does have to play better. Can he play better? We got to wait and see.
Auston Matthews admits that they can't sustain focus and execution for a full 60 minutes. Very astute observation, but as the captain of this hockey team, how much of it falls on the back of him to align this ship? Because as you mentioned earlier, John Tavares is the guy right now who is playing like the leader of this hockey team.
Absolutely. And it does fall on Auston Matthews if he truly is the captain of the team. And when I say that, obviously he's got the C on his jersey. We all know that he's the captain, but is he the captain? Is he the guy in the locker room that can get everybody to go out to lunch or to meet or to do something of whatever it takes to really give it to these guys and say, this is the way you have to play to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. You have to play like this. You cannot take the easy way out in any way, shape, or form in any part of the game when you're on the ice. Is he the guy that can grab the team like that? I don't know. But from what I see, Tavares is the guy that's doing it by his play. But who can do it in the locker room? Who can do it at the practice rink? Who can do it somewhere and really lay into these guys? Because that's what it's going to take, is one of their own to bring them around.
Auston Matthews says the team just can't sustain focus for 60 minutes. And that always baffles me if you talk to a guy who does drywalling or works in construction, and it's like, you got to focus for 60 minutes and you guys can't do that. Try wrap our heads around Auston Matthews admitting his team has a problem with that.
Yeah, I don't think that was a great quote to come out with because of this conversation right here now. I mean, if you're going to admit that to the world that you can't stay focused for 60 minutes, and it's really not even 60 minutes, right? Like, how much does the top guy play? 20 something minutes. So the only guy that's got to stay focused for the entire 60 is the goaltender if he stays in the whole game. But what I mean by that is, you're right. It's almost ludicrous to say that you can't stay focused for 60 minutes. And it's not understandable by the folks that are buying the tickets and that are at the games. They don't understand that. It's just like last year, Peter Laviolette said to the writers in New York, or the media, I don't know what was said. I don't go in the room after the game. Now, we all know that are in hockey that the coaches don't go in the locker room after the game. You've either won or you've lost. They go into their coach's room and the players get, take off their stuff. They have their showers. They talk to who they got to talk to and they leave. However, when you say, what was the room like after the game? I don't know. I don't go in the locker room. Well, it sounds to normal people like, what? You're the coach. You're making all this money. You don't go in the locker room. And it's the same thing, I think, with this quote you just said with Auston Matthews. We can't stay focused for 60 minutes. And then you're getting guys saying, 60 minutes? You can't stay focused for 60 minutes? I got to stay focused for 8 hours sitting at a desk. So not a real good quote.
Neil, the team seemed to have had some momentum this time 4 days ago. They'd won 3 straight. It appeared as though we were seeing signs of them playing a more complete game and turning the ship around. And then they go into the weekend and lose 2 straight. One to a Boston team that's much improved. One to a first-place Carolina team in which they were just wiped right off the ice despite the scoreboard. Let's be really clear on that. How does this team, and who does it fall on beyond Matthews? Is it a Berube? Is it a general manager thing in order for them to sustain good play?
Well, I think first it's got to be on Craig Berube and his staff. Now, when I say on them, I think it's their responsibility to find a way to get a killer instinct into this group. That to me is what they don't have. They have a lot of talent, and they think that it appears that they think they can out talent everybody on a nightly basis. And, either Willie will come through, or Auston will come through, or Tavares will come through, or maybe Matthew Nyes will come through, or maybe, even on the back end, Riley will come through for them or something. But they don't seem to want to, grab that snake by the neck when it's down and kill it. And that's how you have to feel when you got to walk in and want to beat the other guy bad. Like, you just want to win. And it doesn't feel from the outside watching through TV like they have that killer instinct that the real winning teams have. Carolina seems to have that to me, and they're not a big physical team, but they seem to have that killer instinct. We're going to win tonight. I don't care if you get us down 4-2. We're still going to win.
In your mind, who's the team to beat right now in the NHL? Who is the one team where you're like, okay, they're clicking?
Well, I mean, it changes night to night. And so this is a league where, you really have a hard time predicting anything. And I'll give you the example of last night and this weekend. The Anaheim Ducks, they play on Saturday. And they win that game in Vegas. They fly back to Anaheim, where the Winnipeg Jets are sitting in their hotel having watched the Ducks play on TV. And they're waiting, rested. And Winnipeg's one of the best teams in the league. We all know that. Won the President's Trophy last year and off to a great start again this year. And yet Anaheim beats Winnipeg on the second of back-to-back with Mrazek in net as a backup goalie. I make that point because it's so hard to predict. Anybody that's been around would say, well, Winnipeg's rested. Winnipeg's the best team. Poor Anaheim, they're flying in from Vegas. They can't win. They got to put Mrazek in that. And yet they do that. So when you say who do you think? I mean, Colorado just beat Edmonton 9-1 in
9-1.
I mean, I can't imagine how bad things are around there. That's one of our train wrecks along with Toronto. The other one being the New York Rangers, who can't score a goal at home. So after 11 years in that building, I can't imagine what it's like night to night in that building with those ugly fans when they're paying money and they don't even see you score a goal. Never mind win. They don't even see you score. They can't even do the goal chant. But anyway,
Neil, can you please continue to elaborate on the? No, it's okay. I want you to continue to elaborate on the woes of the New York Rangers, because somewhere super fan of the Rangers, Brian Monzo, one of our producers, is watching. Your perspective on what's going on, because we don't cover the Rangers, but this drought they've had at home is unprecedented at some point. Not being able to win, not being able to score actual goals. I've never seen anything like this. What causes such breakdown? Because they've actually looked okay when they're out on the road.
Well, 24 hours after becoming the first team in NHL history to win 7 road games before they've won a home game. That's the first time that's ever happened, ever, since 1916. I think that they just come home and are so uptight and so squeezing their sticks so hard, because that is such a difficult building to be the home team when things aren't going well. I mean, when things are going good, it's a great place to play. When things aren't going good, they can make it hell for you in that place. And so I got to think that it's a psychological thing, that they're just so uptight when they play these games. Now, Trocheck is playing tonight against Nashville. Vinny Trocheck is one of their leaders. Maybe he can, help get them a goal somehow. But and they need a win. They need to win a home game. I think that's what's going on in this version of the Rangers this year. How did we get to this version of the Rangers is a whole nother story, because only 12 months ago, still at this point, Rangers were the reigning President's Trophy team. And now they're the reigning non-playoff team, can't score at home team.
I'm sitting talking to you from Peterborough, Ontario, home of Steve Larmer, one of your players at the Rangers. Should he be in the Hockey Hall of Fame?
Well, you know I'm going to say yes to that. Steve
Hell
is one
yeah!
of my favorites. Steve is one of my favorites, and Steve is Steve Larmer was a player during his time that every team would have loved to have had on their team. He was the most complete player of anybody. He was a leader, but he was a guy that, you know, like a lot of those Peterborough Petes from that era, the Bob Gainey's and the Doug Jarvises and those players that played in Peterborough, they were complete players. They knew how to play both ends of the ice. And Larmer spent all those years in Chicago. I think he was just one of the best Hawks of his era. We were lucky to get him when he held out, which ruined his Ironman streak, by the way, because he held out. He didn't want to play in Chicago. And then I was lucky enough to be able to get him. And we wouldn't have won the Stanley Cup had it not been for getting Steve Larmer on the team. So, yeah, I'm behind Steve Larmer all the way.
One of the keys, played lacrosse growing up. That gives you the hands.
Isn't John Tavares also an excellent lacrosse player?
He's from the Tavares family, are lacrosse royalty. His uncles are fantastic at the game. And Nieuwendyks played as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Neil, we thank you for this, buddy.
You know, I want to remind everybody out there that doesn't know this, and this shows my age, that lacrosse is the national sport of Canada.
You got that right.
True. Got that right.
Not
and
hockey.
The Peterborough Lakers.
The official national sport of.
We've won the most titles in our hometown here. We're always playing a team in BC. It's always BC against Peterborough. There you go.
Well, you know, you bring up Peterborough, a place that I've been many times, and it brings to mind Greg Millen, who I miss and is a dear friend I went to high school with. It brings up so many different people that are from Peterborough. Great athletes, great people have been in Peterborough. And the New York Islanders in 1972 and 73 had their training camps in Peterborough.
And the Montreal Canadiens used to have their farm team as the Peterborough Petes. Speaking of Greg Millen, my good friend Steve Webb, former New York Islander, said Greg Millen was the most perfect person you could have speaking about the NHL and promoting the game. He said he was just that good at it and such a nice human.
Such a great guy, and he's missed. And I spent so much time with him. A quick story on Greg Millen. I played for Western Michigan University, and we played against the Lake State team in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. And so we were in there the night before our game or whatever it was. And my friend Greg Millen that I went to high school with was playing for the Sioux Greyhounds. And there was another guy that was a pretty good player at that time playing for the Sioux Greyhounds. His name was Wayne Gretzky. And Paul Theriault was the coach. And I went over to see Millsy play. And first time I'd ever seen this, Wayne Gretzky passed the puck back to Millen in net. In this, we're talking 1977, 78, somewhere in there. And of course, this is what a good guy Greg Millen is. He says to me, well, how are you getting around? And I said, I don't know. I just take a taxi back and or whatever. He says, no, use my car. And he loaned me his car to drive around town back then. So I've got a lot of great Greg Millen stories that absolutely back what you said about him being a great human.
Love to hear that. Neil, thanks again, my friend.
Thank you, guys. Anytime.
Thanks, Neil.
So we're around the globe. Neil is in New York. Kyle's in Reno. I'm in Peterborough. How's Reno these days? I've never been.
It's pretty spectacular, Dan. We're on location at the Grand Sierra Resort and Casino right now to film Poker Night in America, the Phil Hellmuth home game. Lots of fun getting that going. And I don't mind Reno. It's a pretty fun place. Took a trip out to South Lake Tahoe, which is incredible and beautiful yesterday morning. went out for a nice breakfast, then spent the day yesterday in a sports book. And some of that was spent watching the Buffalo Bills absolutely continue to underperform this NFL season. They were abysmal, and I don't know what to make of it anymore.
Yeah, they got beat by the Fish. It makes no sense. Destroyed 30-13.
It was inexplicable. Once again, Josh Allen basically had no help out there. James Cook had a very pedestrian game at running back for them, though people aren't sure if he was 100% healthy for that. But they're just not clicking, right? And this Dolphins team has been terrible all year, although pretty much they always get up to play the Bills and vice versa. The Bills didn't show up yesterday. I flew out of Buffalo to come here on it was Saturday morning, and I had the earliest flight out of that airport at 6:13 a.m. At that point, there was nothing but a sea of Bills fans ready to fill 2 or 3 flights down to Fort Lauderdale and support this team. I can't imagine the expense those people went to see such an abysmal performance. It's very disappointing.
Did your plane leave on time?
It left early. It landed early. My connection in Dallas-Fort Worth left on time and landed early from there as well. I still have to get home, though, so there's a pretty good chance you won't see me for a month.
Yeah, I've seen backups at airports where it's a 2-3 hour wait to taxi to the runway but I think the shutdown, there's rumors the government shutdown is ending possibly today.
We can only hope. It's been a nightmare for a lot of travelers. It's affected people in this company. We were discussing before we went on air, and generally speaking, sports as a whole kind of relies on air travel to a great degree, not just to move the players around. I mean, they're all flying on private jets and stuff these days, but fan bases travel. And I feel very bad for these Bills fans I saw in the airport. These are good, hardworking people who probably spent thousands of dollars between the tickets and the flights and accommodation. They're going to one of the most expensive places in the country, and they suffer for that. And that's unfortunate. It's bad enough to see your team absolutely lay an egg, or basically they got completely skunked by a Miami Dolphins team that's been terrible. But then to have travel, drama all surrounding that, and the stress that goes with that's not fun. That's not a good look for any country, any people, any sports team.
It looks like your backdrop right now, you're about to introduce the next performer on the main stage. It looks like you're you're in a magic shop.
There is a magic shop and a magic show in this very casino and resort. And I attempted to walk into it and insert myself in it. And I'll be honest with you, because of this mustache, I was super duper close to making that happen. However, they did eventually ask me for my ID, saw that it was an Ontario driver's license, and the fraud was exposed. So I instead went to the Harry Potter chocolate convention, and I just woke up. It was 2 days ago.
Kyle, when describing entering any event, don't say you're inserting yourself into it. Have a great time in Reno, and we'll talk to you Wednesday, buddy.
Talk to you then.